I know for a fact in your head, there's something that you know you could do today. There's something that's you've been putting off. There's something that even if it feels unrelated, that you know you could execute it and get it done that day. And the thing that's so important about doing it is that you check it off your list and it opens up your brain to think about the next thing. Or you learn something through the process of getting that done that is an experience you didn't have before. And because of that, you're wiser. And you, even if you don't know how this thing is going to get you to the next point, like I never knew I'd have this full circle uh, job of dialed health and strength training for cyclists when I left to become a strength coach and quit downhill racing. I thought that was it. And again, who knows where I would be if I didn't let go of the enduro racing endeavor. And I just kept going because I was so close and I was so close. You know, I kept doing the next thing, even though I didn't know where I'd end up. And I'm really happy where that's now. And honestly, it gives me so much confidence as an entrepreneur going forward to be like, I think I know the direction I'm going, but if it doesn't work out that way, I'm sure it's because there's something better in store that I can't even envision right now because of my current experience and my current like wisdom level. You got to start moving forward.
Derek Teel is the founder of Dialed Health, an app and platform that provides comprehensive strength and training solutions for cyclists. Derek is a former pro downhill and enduro racer, and he bootstrapped his way through the pandemic to become a tech entrepreneur, an influential endurance sports creator who's helping cyclists take a more complete approach to training. Sounds cool, and it is. And you've been listening to this show long enough to know that the path for Derek to get to where he is today was not a straight line. P90X plays an unexpected role in this story, and we talk about how Derek came so close to going large in pro downhill and pro enduro racing, and why he pivoted to a new career in strength and conditioning, how that led to building a business and brand that's blowing up, and why he is focusing on racing one cycling discipline this year. Stand clear. This guy is melting Instagram, and that's not all. He's also the father of 3 kids, including a relatively fresh set of twins. He has a lot on his plate, and he's juggling it all with great success. You can learn more about Derek at Dialed Health on Instagram and at dialedhealth.com, as well as on YouTube, where you'll find inspirational pieces and training content. Be sure to subscribe to the Dialed Health podcast everywhere you listen and keep an ear out. I'll be on the other side of the mic with Derek on an upcoming episode of his podcast soon to talk about strength and conditioning for cyclists, business, and life. Choose the Hard Way is a podcast about how doing hard things is fun and builds stronger human beings. Please help more people find this podcast. To do that, just hit subscribe and rate the show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and share this episode with someone you care about. Whether you're new or a longtime listener, I'd really appreciate you just hitting 5 stars wherever you listen. Leave a positive review. Even a few words really helps, and I deeply appreciate it. So do my guests. Go to choosethehardway.com to sign up for the newsletter. And if there's someone you think would make a great guest, please send a note to choosethehardway@gmail.com or at HardwayPod on social. We're coming up on our 100th episode here in the next few weeks. And if there's someone special you would like to hear me interview, I'd love to hear about it. As always, you can find those links in the show notes, and it sounds like my neighbor just started mowing their lawn, so let's jump into the interview.
I grew up racing mountain bikes, and like I said, I grew up on just action sports in general. So anything involving boards or bikes, any of that was just something I was interested in. But bikes kind of stuck. And I got a mountain bike from my dad, just a dirt jumper. I don't know if you're familiar with the early 2000s line of Konas, the Kona Stuff. It's one of those bikes that most mountain bikers that are my age, I'm 32 now, had at one point, or they had a Kona Stinky. And that's when Freeride was getting big, Red Bull Rampage stuff. And that's really what I wanted to do. But then I actually started racing a little bit more because I was getting injured so much, even as a young age, trying to do freeride stuff. You know, like I was building myself mulch piles in green belts by my house when I was 14, and I was hucking backflips. I literally would put on like hockey gear and like go just learn these tricks. And it's crazy looking back on, because now if I saw a 14-year-old doing that, I would think they're insane. And so it's cool to almost give myself a little credit for it now, because at the time I was just trying to do something, So I ended up getting into downhill racing because I thought I would be injured less, funny enough. And I really did like the racing side of the sport. that
Interesting choice, Derek. Yeah.
yeah, that did not prove to be true. And I think there's other influences that kind of pushed me that direction. But yeah, worked my way up to the professional ranks. And that's where I was first introduced to nutritionists and trainers, and started paying attention to my health and my performance, and really how it could actually affect my downhill racing. Because up until that point, I knew being physical was important, but it's such a technical focused sport that I didn't think eating tomatoes would make a difference. Like I grew up eating like Reese's Puffs and Pop Tarts every day. So I did not think that trying to have a whole food based, well rounded diet, any of that made, like, I didn't think any of that mattered. So it was really intriguing to me. And it was funny because when I started stepping away from racing, my interest in all that side of the sport really grew and grew.
Well, we've got to go back for a minute. So, what year is this that you're starting to get into downhill racing? Is it what, like 2006, 2007? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I want to say it was maybe a little earlier, like
Okay.
2005.
Okay.
And I started racing professionally around 2000. I think 2009 was my last year in juniors. And then I
Okay.
had my first pro season in 2010. And then I had the biggest injury I've had at that point, funny enough, a torn ACL. And that's when I started kind of going in and out of the sport a little bit. And it was funny because even before that, as a junior, I remember I'd be on the chairlift at a national round. I was in Angel Fire actually, and I'm sitting there with I rode for Yeti at the time, and Damian Smith, who's still the manager of that team. I was talking to him. I was like, "Man, what do you do after racing?" And I remember it was so weird to me to ask that, because as a 18-year-old who has a potential career in this sport, who, like, what 18-year-old's even looking beyond that?
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird that I would even ask those questions. And I remember his answers, and just thinking, like, for me, I felt like there was something different besides racing out there. And so it was interesting to look back at that as well, now that I've really made things full circle through Dialed Health, and be like, wow, like I didn't think I could actually even be happy if I wasn't a professional athlete. And now I have a job that feels like it's literally like built for me. And I have custom built it for me, but at the same time, I just couldn't imagine doing something that was more well suited for me, and has more longevity. So yeah, it's really, really interesting how all that happened.
Yeah. And I bet a few things happened between that chairlift ride and you doing what you're doing now. And I'm really curious at the very beginning when you're getting into free ride, and that was kind of when free ride was being born. Were you in it when the cranked videos came out? Because those were the very first videos I ever saw. I had them on VHS, where I was like, guys like Richie Schley. I'm trying to think of some of the other writers, but like
Yeah,
that was
Wade
kind of,
Simmons,
yeah,
Kyle Strait was up and coming.
yeah,
You had racers like Cedric Gracia going out there, meeting up with those guys. Yeah, absolutely. So those were an influence, but I was more of I think right after Cranked, when all the New World
yeah,
Disorder videos came out, that's
sure.
really what
Okay.
I grew up on, was like New World Disorder, and uh, I'm trying to think of, The Collective, Rome, and
Right.
then race videos by Clay Porter. Those were the ones that really got me when I was up and coming. But those were like the actual pros at that point, and I was just like
Yeah.
again, a 14-year-old kid trying to do Supermans on a jump I built that's like 4 feet tall.
Right. And New World Disorder, that's making me think about Josh Bender, which is a name I haven't thought about in a long time. Do you remember him?
Yeah, he's actually somewhat local to me. Funny enough, he helps run
Wow.
an enduro
Okay.
race that's only like 70 miles away from where I live. So he's still kind of in the
Wow.
scene, and I think he still does the judging panel for Red Bull Rampage.
That's wild, because that guy went bigger than anybody else in his era. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't remember which Norma Nat it was at, but I don't know, he like rode off a building or something and did like a 30-foot drop almost to flat, I feel like. He did a
I,
lot of stuff
dude,
like
I'm
that.
pretty sure it was Deer Valley, and I'm pretty sure I was at that race. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, it was. It was so big, and the landing was so flat. There was almost no hope, but he sent it anyways. And it was off. It was
Yeah.
like the big cinder block wall thing. Is that what you're talking about? Like the
Yeah.
big. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, absolutely insane.
Yeah. Inspiring a generation of legends to come, including Derek Teel. So that's
Wow.
amazing. The only thing I wish is that Sean Palmer had come along a few years later, because
Oh man.
if you'd had Palmer when free rides started to get big in mountain biking, and I'm sure Sean was doing all kinds of free riding, but I was around as a journalist, I was around the Norba circuit at the time when Palmer was showing up in his tour bus and like had the gold lame suit, and he was racing downhill. He was racing cross country. I I I don't think he was I don't think he had dialed health. Let's put it that way. Sean had he wasn't using performance enhancing drugs, maybe just everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't yeah, and Sean, you're a legend. No disrespect. That's all hearsay, but yeah, he took a different approach to high performance than athletes take today, I think.
Well, I think it would have been fun to be a little older through that time period too, and to actually see things for what they were. Because even growing up near Lake Tahoe, like I live right at the bottom of the foothills of Lake Tahoe
Right.
in California, and so to see that golden era of action sports come through that area, Sean Palmer was a huge part of it. To see stuff like the Norba series, and even you know to see road racing when it was a little bit more popular in the U.S. With the Tour of
Right.
California, which went right by my hometown. That I think that would have been really exciting. But I think with that said, for what I'm doing now, I can't think of a better time to be in the sport because, even for cyclists, there's not as much debate around whether strength training or taking care of your body off the bike is a good idea. It's more of just how to do it and what to do. And I think even in action sports, I mean, dude, look at guys like Nyjah Houston, Ryan Sheckler, like the OG most winning skateboarders. Like those guys are
Right.
in PT almost daily. And they all have trainers and they're paying attention to what they eat. They're meditating. They're doing breathing practices. They're using Theraguns before they go and get on their skateboard. And that's freaking skateboarding. So
Yeah.
now it's like you have these more professional levels of racing. It's not even a if you should do it. It's just how do you do it and how do you implement it. So for me, it's cool because I love health and fitness from a general industry perspective. And I spent almost 10 years just training in that side of the space. And it like that alone is interesting enough. But my first love is bikes. And so the fact that I can bring them together and really actually impact people who are struggling to balance the two is like, it is the coolest thing ever. And I even think if Sean Palmer was around now, he would have a trainer because he's too competitive. You could be like an
Right.
absolute party animal, but if you're competitive enough, you're not gonna say no to things that are clearly gonna work. And the evidence is there now, which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even at the time, I know Palmer took his training incredibly seriously. Like the guy, he was going out and he was racing cross country races and he was doing very well, which was remarkable. I don't know if you met Sean. He's a solidly built human being. Like he's pretty
Really,
jacked just
I've
naturally.
never met him actually,
Yeah.
but what's crazy is my parents bumped into him at a skate show that they drove by in Oregon one time randomly, and I ended up with this
Yeah.
autographed hat from him. It was a Think skateboards hat. Remember the brand Think?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, anyways, I have never met him in person, but I would love to, man. That would be a legendary mountain bike ride. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I think briefly he was doing a development team with Intense. I think that was like the last thing I saw
Mm,
that Palmer was doing. I don't know. Now I feel like I've got to track him down and try to get him on the show because I'd love to talk to that guy. What a legend. But
yeah.
let's talk more about Derek Teel. What happened when you made the transition from pro athlete to something else? When did you know that your pro career was over and how did that feel?
Like I said earlier, I honestly, at the time of transitioning out of it, I felt confident that there was something else out there that was a better fit for me than downhill mountain bike racing. But dude, I genuinely did not think I could be happy if I wasn't a downhill mountain bike racer for my job. And so I think having injuries like the torn ACL and a couple other things that came up, they gave me time to separate enough from it to where I had that time to think and I wasn't just continually going through the motions and the habits. And some people get in that groove. It's like if you don't actually remove yourself from your environment enough, you can't think
Right.
clearly or think differently about something. So it was incredibly hard. Honestly, I felt like I was kind of I don't know if I was, say, living a lie, but I knew I needed to try something else. And there were other things before I even got into personal training. And, one of those was honestly just going to college and getting like general education credits.
Right.
I started going to a community college because basically my parents had always said, hey, we'll support your racing. Don't worry about school if you want to do it. But hey, if you're not going to race, you got to go to school. And so that's what I ended up doing. And it was just such a front. I didn't want to be there. I didn't care about what I was learning. It felt so stupid. And like that was the definition of me just fronting to try and figure stuff out. And so I remember the first time after racing that I really made a plan and executed it was when I decided to become a trainer because I'm 20 years old, almost 21, I think at this point. There's no reason why I shouldn't be out downhill racing. And I'm not. I'm at my parents in their garage doing P90X videos, thinking what am I doing? But also, I kid you not, I'm doing this P90X video and I'm looking up at the screen and I'm like, man, this guy's got a pretty cool job. Like he's literally just doing a bunch of push-ups and pull-ups and getting people fired up. And I was like, man, maybe I should be a trainer. Like I could do this. And I will say the one thing I knew about myself at that time was that I was naturally encouraging. I think that was a gift I just have from it's just part of my personality. I've always been that way. I like to motivate people and get people fired up to do something. So even at that time, I saw what he was doing, and it's kind of over the top, but at the same time, I just felt like it could be a good fit. So I started looking into what it would take to be a personal trainer. And I had minimal time in gyms at that point. I think when I went to gyms, I'd spend more time just like in the sauna and like playing racquetball and like do a couple of reps of bench press and call it a day. I was that kind of guy. I never used machines. Like I didn't know how to do anything, but I was like, all right, I'm going to become a trainer. It looks like pretty minimal start point. I called all the gyms in my area up and down California and asked like, what is the best training cert for me to go get? And I made a plan to go get it. It was like a 3 to 6 months process. Did my studying, executed it, and became a trainer within like, I think it was 4 months or so from that point. And that's when I was fully committed to just becoming a full-time trainer and focusing on having an impact in the general health and fitness industry.
And prior to that, like when you were downhill racing, as you mentioned, you were somebody who was very serious about it. Were you lifting at all and doing any strength and conditioning for downhill, or were you just riding?
Yeah, I was for sure. And even growing up, I was physical. My dad had me doing push-ups and pull-ups when I was 12 years old. He's a career-long CHP officer, SWAT
No way.
team, FBI, a lot of awesome stuff. And he basically would have me being very physical, take us on crazy hikes, running. I grew up doing some triathlons, actually with Nielsen Palace, funny enough. He grew up in my hometown.
Really?
We both would do Ironman triathlons. And so, or Iron Kids triathlons.
Right.
And then, I'd be on the cross country team. And there were other things too. I would go dig dirt jumps all day. And also, I had a stint in karate, which I strangely took very seriously in Bok Fu and worked my way up to, it was like halfway through the junior black belt ranking to almost to a certified. I did kickboxing. So I was always like physical in and out of different sports. And there were these like few things that I was like very disciplined about. One of them was like building dirt jumps. Like I would literally say 100 more shovel loads before I can leave, stuff like that. And I'm 12 years old. No one's telling me to go do this, but I wanted dirt jumps. No one was going to build them for me. We didn't have bike parks then. Like these kids don't understand. You would spend an entire winter building dirt jumps, and then the first month of summer, your city would come and tear them down, and you have to rebuild them. Like that was our journey to like free ride. And so, anyways, it's total side tangent. But I would also get freakishly disciplined about karate, and I think that's one of those things, physically training mindset that early on I took it really seriously, like too seriously for a 12-year-old. For instance, there were all of these like katas or moves that you would learn, like self-defense movements. Like, oh, if someone comes up and grabs your shoulders from the front, this is what how you defend it, essentially. And so there were all these different movements you would learn through the belt system. And one of the achievements you could have was to know every single one of them by command. Like they just say the name of what it is and you bust it out. And I was like one of the only kids at the whole studio that actually took the time to practice enough to be able to do that. And I remember getting this like gold star that was a patch on my pants, you know. It's just stuff like that. It's funny looking back and seeing where the discipline came through. And it always came back to this mix of physicality and then just like some type of like very focused effort. So yeah, I think those were the sports where it kind of shone through. So when I came into training, I wasn't completely like I knew how to do a push-up. I could do this is actually really funny, but I did so many pull-ups growing up. I had my high school pull-up record for a time. It was like 44 pull-ups. So I remember it's funny because this stuff's almost coming back to me. I haven't talked about it in a while, but yes, I was very familiar with strength training, but more so from a body weight perspective. I did some focused programs for training for downhill, a lot of dumbbell work, but that was pretty much it.
When you hit 44 pull-ups, what was your body weight? Do you remember?
Oh, it was, dude, I wrestled in middle school, 8th grade, like 113. So I was for sure under 140. Gosh, I was probably like 130 pounds. I think it was like my freshman or sophomore year of high school.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I was like, it was actually, I think that it was broken by like a gymnast girl who was like $110 that did like a ridiculous amount of pull-ups, you know? But that was always something I was just raised on, was just push-ups and pull-ups. Even now, my dad, you know, in his 50s can bust out a set of 25 strict pull-ups. It's pretty sick.
Wow. Did you have a pull-up bar in the house?
Oh yeah, always.
Was it like doorway pull-up bar? Like
we had a power rack, you know, like a pull-up dip station in the garage growing up. It was next to my dad's indoor trainer, funny enough. And we also had one of those multi-grip rock climbing things above the door handle when you walked in the house. And it had like 2 big pull-up grips on the top corners that you could do pull-ups from. So it was in my face a lot.
Nice. So your dad rode bikes also?
Yeah. Yeah. He was the one who, well, it's funny. He got me the mountain bike when I never really asked for it, pushed me through the mountain bike direction. And then he was the one who always tried to push me towards endurance, because he told me, he's like, dude, you have a natural gift for endurance. Like, you should focus on this. He was trying to get me to clip in on my mountain bike forever. I rode flats because like I'm the Sam Hill generation, which was, you know, flat pedals, win medals, foot out, flat out. That was the mentality. And so basically I didn't listen to him on a lot of those areas, which he brings up a lot now, but he was a huge influence for sure in my exposure to riding. I mean, I grew up with the Tour de France on in my house for sure.
Right. Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have one older brother, but man, we are so different, wildly different. He's a math teacher into football, basketball, mainstream sports. So we, you know, there's brotherly love. We love each other, but we've never really connected on that type of athletics or sport.
So you guys weren't pushing each other with pull-ups or other things like that in the house?
No, not really. Not really. Yeah. I think it was more my dad like asking us if we did our push-ups that day or something like that.
Yeah, that's sick. That's great. It's awesome to have parents who can help shape the direction you move with your relationship with sport and with strength and all those things, right?
Dude, it's so important, because I think no matter what you tell your kids, they're just going to look at what you do. And so whether it's how you treat your wife or how you treat your own body, I know for me, I recently moved my commercial gym space into my garage now that I'm online only. And so I have my whole garage built out, which is actually what's behind me as a gym. And it's so cool because my kids see me working out. I bring them out here. They play on the stuff. They grab the 5-pound dumbbells, and it just to normalize it for them, I think is great. Like, they drink protein shakes with creatine in it, and I tell them the ingredients all the time now. And so like there's the fact that that's normal to them makes me super excited, and they're not going to think it's weird to have to go on some, like, to have to make time for exercise or for their body, you know? It's cool. Like, dude, my 4-year-old does push-ups with me and they stretch with me. They get on the foam roller when I'm foam rolling. So That's kind of my parent rant, but yeah, I have three kids under 4, so I'm
Yeah,
definitely
no,
trying to influence them.
that's how it is in my house as well. I have a power rack in the garage. My setup's not quite as dialed or orderly as yours, but it's pretty nice. My kids love to come in and swing on the TRX. Like that's a big move. And then
Yes.
I also have a TRX in the house, actually in their playroom. It's attached above the door. So, that's a good way to be able to get
Oh,
in some
that's a good
reps
idea.
and hang out with your kids. And then I also have a low anchor point in the playroom on the wall. So I've got my bands anchored down there. So that's any dads, moms out there looking to get in some reps. That's a pro tip. I've got a low anchor for the bands, and then I've got a high anchor for the TRX in the playroom.
With the low anchor on the bands, are you doing handled bands, or are you doing like the rip stick from TRX or something like that?
I generally I just have a band on there for like doing lifts, chops, things like that,
Nice.
plank rows, that type of thing. But
Nice. And I bet
yeah,
your kids grab the band and they rip on it all the time. Like
oh
just
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, totally. I've had to give them some instruction about not attempting to pick up the 24K kettlebells that are strewn. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
which they can pick them. I'm like, nah, not right now. That's not what you need to be doing. So how did you get the idea for Dialed Health, and when did this become the focus? Just working in this specific area.
So when I became a personal trainer, like I said, I felt like I was kind of still almost living a lie because I had gotten out of downhill, which is what I always thought I'd be doing. And so I felt like I had some unfinished business in regards to racing. And I really wanted to settle that score. And it's funny because at the time I was personal training, I'd got my first trail bike. I got a Santa Cruz Nomad, like the original gravity dropper post. I think this was early 2013. And I was just trail riding, once or twice a week, as I did all my personal training. And that's when Enduro was becoming a real sport. And, it was a big sport before that, but it was becoming like a mainstream mountain
Yeah,
bike staple. And
right.
so I was really interested in it because I was now doing that type of riding and it was more physical. And because I felt like I had that unfinished business with racing, I was like, you know what? I want to try this out. So I ended up moving home. I was kind of chasing my now wife, but girlfriend at the time up and down the state. And so I had come home. I was training. I was living back in my parents' house, and I was like, you know what? I want to go out and try an enduro race. And I went out and I did pretty dang well. It was like a local race. I think I finished like 10th or something like that because I was honestly just so out of shape when it came to pedaling. And it was super, a lot of the
Right.
tracks in California are very, very pedal heavy for enduro. And so I remember thinking, like, first off, why did that kill me so much? Because I'm in really good general fitness. So I got to figure that out. But also, I still have a lot of the bike skill that I have from downhill. And I think this could be an opportunity for me to see if a racing career really is once and for all a thing for me. So I basically came up, this was like my next real formal plan that I made. And I talked to my parents about it because I think at the time I'm 23 years old or something. And I just told them, I was like, hey guys, there's this sport. I think I can do well. I want to try 2 years of going out and pursuing this sport. And if I don't have a legit pro contract by the end of this 2 years, I'll move on and I'll focus on whatever else. And at the time, dialed health wasn't a thing, but I was just in person training, doing a variety of that. I had boot camps on the weekends. I trained small group. I did one-on-one. I was just like a full-on freelance trainer. I'll train anybody and everybody that wants to hire me. And so at that time, I started getting back into enduro. I still had a lot of my old connections. And because I was racing pro, I was quickly becoming friends with like some of the top enduro racers in the country. And I started getting some podiums at a lot of the big West Coast races like California Enduro Series, and really becoming like one of the top competitors in the country for enduro racing. And I wasn't winning, but I was consistently doing well. And at the end of the 2 years, even though I had conquered a lot of the demons I had with racing, which was like how to be consistent week in, week out. Can I enjoy it? Can I go through a race weekend without too much anxiety to where it's not even fun? Those were things I really wanted to conquer. And so I did those things, but I still wasn't beating like top racers, because we have a huge crop of top talent in America, and only a few of those are actually ranking in the world. And those were the guys, I might beat on a stage here or there, but I wasn't beating them enough to where I had real sponsorship opportunity to make this a career. And it's tough, dude, because I was really close. Like I was really close to making it happen, but it didn't. And my commitment, like to my family, to myself, it was 2 years, and then I redirect. If it's not going to happen after 2 years, and after all the previous years I've done it, I think it's time to move on. And I stuck to it, and that's when I really went full on into dialed health. And I bring up that whole endeavor into enduro because when I was racing with some of the top athletes in America, a lot of them knew I was a personal trainer. So they started asking me about strength training off the bike. And there was a lot of natural conversation that would come up in the transfers on these races because, you sometimes have a 3-hour climb between stage 1 and stage 2. And so you're just kind of cruising up, you're talking to other athletes, and, they'd bring it up. And I really realized how much of a need there was for the actual strength side of it. And because I felt a lot more confident about what I was doing on the bike, I felt like I understood how you could balance the training and actually get your best out at races and out on the bike specifically. And so I made my first online program at the end of that year to sell as a PDF guide. And it was cool because it had links to YouTube, and it was a pretty well done, clean single program, which is now my off-season enduro program that I currently offer on my website. And that was the first one I launched. And that's how the need for it became clear, essentially. Is like, I'm out racing at a high level. Some of the best racers in the country, and some of them in the world, have no idea what to do off the bike. Like, literally, is shockingly shockingly bad strength programs or things I was hearing. And so it just felt like there's a real need to address. And that's kind of how it started from there. It was all very mountain bike focused. That's what I was doing at the time. And I made those connections early on through the racing that I did.
What were people doing? Were they just grabbing muscle and fitness and doing some bodybuilding stuff?
Kinda. Yeah. I mean, I would almost say more powerlifting stuff. Like, a lot of guys would just find some crazy, like, Russian 10 by 10 program and start just crushing themselves. And this is a tough thing for a lot of cyclists. And I see this on the side, like the more endurance side or the full on pro road side of it, is that these guys like to work hard. These guys are tough. Like, they also like to train their legs. So when they go to a gym, the natural thing is, oh, I want stronger legs, I should destroy them. And not only that, but I'm willing to a lot more than the average person, because I already know what it's like to have my legs blow up from lactic acid and push them to the extreme. Like, I'm going to go do deadlifts followed by I'll go do heavy deadlifts followed by Bulgarian split squats, followed by leg extensions, and then calf raises. And then I'm going to do walking lunges until failure. And I'm going to feel really good about that. And then I'm not going to be able to ride my bike for a week. And then I'm not going to strength train for another month because of that. And this is like perpetual cycle of like forever soreness and never actually getting quality strength training. So that's a lot of what would be happening. It was like a power lifter adding on a ton of accessory work.
Derek, you mentioned one of the things you wanted to overcome when you went back to enduro racing after you'd walked away from downhill was that you wanted to get over being anxious during a race weekend. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm always really interested in what an athlete's relationship is with like having the optimal level of arousal, because some people perform best when they're super anxious. Some people, like I had Allison Jackson on twice in the past few months. Her attitude is, any race I enter, I'm going to win the race. And I think she genuinely feels like that. I personally, like, I've never really felt like that when I've walked into a race. But what was it like for you?
Well, it's awesome that you had her on. She was my last podcast guest, and she's such a legend. We were talking about how she uses dancing as a warm-up, and I was breaking down why it's such a good warm-up, actually. And it was really cool to connect on that. So shameless plug, but yeah, she was on my podcast recently, and total legend. For me, with the anxieties, I think I can't help but feel a little bit nervous for almost anything that I do. Like, there's times before filming a workout video where I feel a little bit nervous, but I think it comes down to knowing why I'm doing it and feeling excited about the end result. And so when I'm excited about the end result, like for me, filming a new program or doing a podcast like this, or leading a group workout or a group ride, or actually going out and doing like a race, I really have my why now. And for instance, even for me to go do like Unbound 200, like I did this year, I'm looking at it from the opportunity of building my brand, of being with the community, creating a sense of uh, credibility for myself when as a coach, when I talk to athletes about doing this. Like, I'm checking all of these boxes just by showing up on the start line. And dude, at the end of the day, I like to go out for hard rides anyways. I would probably be doing something very similar to this on this Saturday anyways. And I think knowing all of those things leads me to my why, which helps me perform well and like relax. But even knowing all that, dude, I still get nervous. And that is what feels like the sweet spot. Before growing up and not really having a why and feeling like I have to do this or I'm not going to be happy, essentially with the downhill racing, like if I don't perform and I don't move up in this ranking system of downhill racing, then I'm just not going to be happy. Dude, I would get debilitating nervousness to where I couldn't eat. So then my performance is bad. And it's just this compounding snowball of suck. And that is something I really wanted to conquer when I came back into enduro racing. So I think knowing the why was important, but also understanding that if you don't have fun at some point of the process, you're probably not going to perform your best anyways, because you're not going to likely get into that flow state the same way. Now, on the other hand, if you don't have any type of nerves, I think it could be scary because it is like a form of energy, and it's a form of focus to where it's like this instinct to where you have to be hyper aware. And as long as you are staying aware of your surroundings and not getting so tunnel vision that you don't perform, I think it's probably a good thing to have a little bit. But I say I have this tattoo on my neck. What side is it? It's over here. It says breathe. And that's actually my first trigger, like trying like that's how I handle anxiety if I feel it pop up. Just on a daily basis anyways. That's like my very first thing. If I feel the trigger of anxiety, I know I need to take a deep breath.
When you feel anxiety, where do you feel it in your body?
Mostly my stomach and then my head. But I'll feel my stomach like it's almost crippling, like it wants to pull you forward or like pull you down. And then a lot of times you just start feeling like your head, like things are closing in on you a little bit. And then it's a breath thing. Then you don't breathe.
Yeah, you gotta breathe. It's an important part of
You got to breathe.
Yeah,
Probably the most important part of staying alive. Debatable, but yeah.
You bring up a really interesting point, though, that if you're doing anything that matters to you, typically you are going to feel some level of nervousness, and if you don't, there's it's a different type of challenge potentially. And I know that Demi Vollering said before the time trial at the Tour de France that she actually didn't feel nervous the day she woke up, and she was like, I have to get my head in this, which she obviously did because she won the race. But yeah, I mean, that's
dude, I almost brought that up as an example, by the way. We're on the same wavelength because that just happened. Totally. And she said I was a little worried that I wasn't nervous, like I was too chill. I had to amp myself up a little bit.
Yeah. So going way back, and I guess this connects to now as well, but what's the feeling that you get out of riding bikes? Why do you like it?
It is the ultimate culmination of fitness, adrenaline, and nature. It's like the three things I love the most, and it all comes into one. And I think what the coolest thing about riding is that you can lean into certain parts of it more than others at times. There's times where you can go for a ride with almost zero performance goals or intention, but it's so beautiful that it completely, like, you get lost in it. I just did a ride in a Yosemite Valley and it was insane, dude. You're looking around and you're feeling the air on your face, and that's a moment where it's just pure nature. Or some of the trail rides I've done through Tahoe even are just unbelievable. And so you have that nature side of it, which is, and just being outdoors, which I think everyone needs to experience in some way. Then you have the performance aspect. There's days you don't care about any of the visuals, and you're there to do 300 watts for X amount of time, or you're there to do this race and get the fastest time down this mountain, or you're there to absolutely blow yourself up on a 5-hour training ride prepping for Unbound. And so that's when the competitive side of it comes out. And then you also have and I guess that comes with the, like, just the pure fitness as well. There are times where I'm like, yes, I do this for fun. I do this to get outdoors, but it's also my workout, which physiologically is one of the, most proven best things you could do for your body. So that's a huge side of it. And then you have the adrenaline, dude. When you're hitting a 40-foot double on a mountain bike, or when you're doing 50 miles an hour on a road bike and you're going around a corner, or maybe you're doing that and you almost crash, but you don't, and then you come away from it, that is a feeling probably better than, well, I haven't done enough drugs to actually tell you what that, comparably would be like, but I could imagine that's probably as good as any drug you could take. It's insanely like, it's insanely good. Like, it just feels good. It feels like you cheated death a little bit. It's like, that adrenaline is just rad. Or even if it's not a near death moment or crash moment, like sometimes just like now what I experience on the road bike, pace lining with some dudes that are all just throwing down, and you just have that good bro energy, and you're just going for it. That can just feel so good. I get fired up talking about it. That's how I am even with strength training, dude. And that's why I love it too, is that sometimes, I don't feel like going for a ride that day. And, I've ridden 4 days a week without fail for years at the minimum, and a lot of weeks more. But there are days I genuinely wake up and I'm like, dude, I feel like strength training today. Like, I don't feel like riding. And a lot of it's because of what it does to you physiologically. When you do pick up like a heavy trap bar deadlift and put it down, it's a good feeling. And same thing, even if you're just doing a stretch that hits the right spot, it's just a very, very good feeling. It's therapeutic, and it's so good for your body that it's like that result that you always want. So I'm sorry, that was such a long-winded answer as to why I like to ride a bike, but that's all of it right there.
No, that's a great answer. I love it. And, as you mentioned, you have 3 kids, twins are in the picture now, and you're also talking about things like hitting a 40-foot double, which, if that's me, I'm getting off and walking my bike. If we ever hang out in real life, maybe you could show me how to do just a basic double, because I'm kind of a wheels on the ground mountain biker.
Okay.
At this point in my trajectory. How has your relationship to risk changed, if at all, with, having more children and more responsibility? Does that weigh on you or move you in a different direction at all?
Yeah, I feel it sometimes at random, moments. It's interesting. When I went into downhill racing, I mentioned I want to get injured less, and I quickly found out that was not the case. And when I had stopped racing, I also had told myself, I'm like, this is really nice because, or one of the upsides is that I probably get injured a lot less. And I remember literally the summer that I first stopped racing, this was before the trainer, I was skateboarding at a skate park, did a flat ground kickflip, and I broke my finger so bad that they had to graft bone out of my wrist and put metal bars that went all the way through my finger. Like, you could see how this knuckle is all distorted still. Like, I could never fit a ring on that finger. Okay. And I have arthritis in it almost daily. Like, it's crazy. It's one of the worst injuries I've had, but it's my finger. And so I remember doing that, and I was like, I just did a kickflip. I've done 2,000 kickflips in my life. And I was like, I am never again going to let the fear of injury stop me from doing something that I want to do, because it could happen stepping off a curb. It could happen during a kickflip. It can happen doing a 40-foot double on the mountain bike. And so that was one thing that moving forward, I was like, dude, I can't live like that. Now, with that said, I have moved more into the endurance side of the sport, because that's genuinely, I think, where my interest has fallen in the performance. And I like to pedal, dude. I just love, like, I did a Everest on my trail bike, was like the first big endurance feat that I did. And that really sealed the deal of being like, dude, it's all about pedaling. I just love pedaling now. And so I've spent more time on the road bike, on the gravel bike, on my cross country mountain bike. I rarely ride gravity focused stuff as much. And it's just a funny byproduct that you really don't get injured as much. Stuff still does happen. I've had a few crashes, and I'm trying to be as careful as possible, but I have had people say, "Oh, are you doing this because you've had kids now?" Because the timing has been very similar as I've made this transition, and that wasn't the case. But I'll tell you now that I'm experiencing it, it's really nice. It feels great to not be injured as much as I used to be, and I know stuff can still happen because everything I love it has potential for injury. Um, but it's really nice. So it wasn't like a motivation, but I do enjoy that side of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. Before I forget, I wanted to ask this question. Have you ever gone head to head, either in enduro or in another discipline, with Jonathan from Trainer Road? Because you're kind of geographically, you're proximate. You both have, a lot of skill in the enduro downhill arena. Have you ever gone head to head?
So he's more of a cross country racer, to be
Yeah,
honest.
but he comes from a motocross background, so I'm sure that
I
he's an
love
exceptional
I love
downhiller.
how you're not cutting him slack.
Yeah,
Uh, this is awesome too because I'm talking to Jonathan Lee on Tuesday.
yeah,
So we just did an enduro, or excuse me, a gravel race, but we haven't done
uh
a
huh.
mountain bike race together. And
Okay.
the reason the gravel race was skewed was because he was on his mountain bike and I was on a gravel bike. So I definitely had an advantage.
He chose to be on a mountain bike, though. I'm assuming he has plenty of bikes.
I don't know if he owns a gravel bike, but I'll tell you, he told his Instagram audience that he's going to do Unbound next year, and I screenshotted it. So he better get out there and do Unbound 200. And I know he's not going to be on a mountain bike for that. So Jonathan, I'm calling you out. But yeah, we have done that race, and I came out ahead. But again, it was the bike. The bike skewed it, So you couldn't really say.
That's his choice. I want to see you guys. Yeah, I want to see you guys go head to head in an enduro or a cross country race that's technical, and we'll see.
Maybe we
So
will.
you,
I think I might try and do Downeyville next year. I
yeah,
kind of had some FOMO not being there this year. That felt like one of those
yeah,
races. I was like, this feels like I should, this was a good one for me. So, yeah, I might be out there. Maybe we'll have the opportunity to. We'll see.
yeah. Well, it starts here. It starts today. The challenge has been issued. The gauntlet has been thrown down. So, Jonathan, if you're listening, or even if you're not, I'm going to reach out to you. I want to make this test of wills and skills happen.
Shots
Um,
fired.
yeah. So, Derek, to go in a different direction, as you've dialed up dialed health, content's been a huge part of what you've done. And I've heard you talk about just ramping that up and kind of what your thoughts were about some of the content that you made initially versus how it was received and then the direction you've taken it. Could you talk about at the outset, what was your intention and what did you think would work?
Well, with content specifically, the goal has been to build Dialed Health as a brand and leave myself open to opportunities that are bigger than just me or my name. And so I started Dialed Health on all social platforms. And I will say, to go way back to the first thing that I did that was successful that I abandoned were these things called Trainer Tuesdays. And this was before I actually was. This was the start of Dialed Health, but before it was specifically strength training for cyclists. I ended up doing these funny videos where I would have like a remake of Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Dirty Dancing or Nacho Libre. I would do these like skits and it would somehow segue into a lesson about training or nutrition essentially. And there were these like 5-minute videos that started catching wind in my hometown. And on Facebook at the time, some of them got over 10,000 views, which for me, I was like, it was crazy because it was bringing in enough business for me to transition to running my own business full time, just with in-person work. So this was all before Dialed Health was strength training for cyclists. I was enduro racing at the time, but it was funny because I realized I started being successful with the funny parts of the content, and people saw that as the value opposed to the actual training information. And then I also started doing videos that I just like that got a little weird, because I'm trying to be like more eye catching and do crazier stuff. And it got to a point I was like, you know what? Just because you're successful at something doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do for you. Like you can go and be successful in areas that aren't true to who you are. They don't line up with your morals. And it's just because of that reason, it's not a bad idea. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it's crazy because I literally just stopped the videos because I was like, you know what? This is successful, but this is going the wrong direction. And I'm not into this. And so it's funny because, dude, yeah, we actually ended up making this one video we never put out where we filmed it in this gym I was training out of at like midnight. And it was supposed to be this take on like BDSM. And like we had like bands and I was hanging from these bands and I was like screaming. And dude, literally, it sounds almost weirder than it was because I'm like the least perverted guy you've ever met. But I remember thinking, I was like, why am I even doing this? This is like too much, you know? Like this is too far outside of like it's funny, but it shouldn't be coming from me, is how I felt. And thankfully I've unlisted all those videos off of YouTube. But yeah, basically that was the first thing where I was like, whoa, like I'm doing well with content, but I need to like be intentional about where I'm taking this, right? So then I basically start making things more dedicated strength training for cycling because I see the specificity of content online is so important. Like everybody wants to cast this huge net and this huge audience, and you can for certain types of industry. You know, like there are some things like cooking, for example, that almost every type of person loves that can blow up, and you could have a very, very wide audience who all just kind of like to cook a little bit. But with strength training, it's such a flooded market, and there's so many niche communities that if you don't stand out in any of them, you're not going to get a head start, and you're not going to actually gain enough of an audience to like move forward because it's too broad and it's too generic. So I was like, I need to make this very specific strength training for cyclists. And when I started making content directly for that, I started really, instead of like asking people, hey, do you like this? Do you that? I just honestly started looking at analytics because I was like, those are going to tell me what I need to know. And I started realizing that the more specific I was toward even like the drop bar audience, which is like my primary focus now. And I'm about to bring back more mountain bike content, but really focusing on like endurance, strength training for cyclists. You're a cyclist, gravel cyclist, road cyclist. That's when things started making more sense. And it was when I realized that my audience are cyclists and it's not people from that general health and fitness industry. Cause it's weird. I'm a trainer who is from the general health and fitness industry. And that's the content that I produce, but it's all for cyclists. So I had to be very direct with it. And when I started building out content that started with good riding clips, it was enough to stop people from scrolling. And then if I could tie it into the workout that they needed to fix their back pain, or they get stronger climbing legs, or to build a stronger core so they can power transfer better, that's when the content started being more successful. And that's also when I realized I was like, dude, not only am I being more successful with the content, but it's actually supporting the thing that I want to grow, which is dialed health. And so that's basically how I've kind of navigated it over the years, and just try to be adaptable, really, because, you know, some years, you know, reels are big. Some years, other styles of posts are big. Sometimes the photos are big. Sometimes other types of content get pushed by the algorithm. So you just have to you have to know that you need to flow with that. And you can't get too stuck on the way you want to do it. And you have to do it the way that your audience wants to receive it.
Totally. And
You
within the
know?
context of what you're trying to do with your business, what you want to do as an athlete, and then how it fits into your family life, how do you think about things like going to do Unbound, or, you know, doing a double Everest, which require a massive time commitment and a huge training load?
Well, that's taken a lot of time to figure out since I've transitioned more to the endurance side of the sport. And I feel like this is a place where I'm really going to stay, because it's tough, man. You know, you could go out and have a good race result, and you get bit by the bug in the thought of, I need to do this a little bit more, or like, oh, maybe I could kind of like compete with this pro or that pro, or, ooh, maybe I could be a little bit better. And it's really distracting. You know, I think that there's a lot of high level, local, like domestic athletes that are just so distracted by their success that it holds them back from doing other things that they should be. And I didn't want to fall. I didn't want to be that person. Like, I knew I had to like almost like let this side of it go, because on one hand, I'm trying to train myself to get the best performance I can, because I want all of my members to know that I'm in it with them. You know, everybody that uses my programs, they know like I'm doing the same strength training. I'm riding as much as I can. I'm trying to actively improve my nutrition and lifestyle habits, just like I'm telling them to do. There's not one thing I'll ever ask of somebody that I'm not willing to do or haven't done myself, period. And that's where the importance of things like the double Everest came in. I'm telling people to go push themselves, but like when was the last time I actually questioned whether or not I could do something, like genuinely? because I had done the mountain bike Everest, which was a huge step forward at that time. And I had done another road bike Everest. But me going out to double Everest was going to be a 30K PR invert. And so like I don't even know if I can do it. But also when you talk about something for long enough and you say on this day at this time I'm doing this, it's a lot of accountability. And I think that's honestly what got me through. But those are all things that have felt necessary to add credibility to myself as a brand. So even though it does take time away from family and it's a lot of like money and financial risk too, like I've, up until very recently, I've paid for the majority of these projects and I'm just now getting enough sponsor support to actually do things that I really want to do. And hopefully I'm trying to put things in place to get more support because there's so much more I want to do for the upcoming years. And I also know how much this stuff costs now, which is crazy. And then, dude, it's such a toll. When you do a 24-hour effort, it's not like you just come home and you're ready to play with your kids. You can you're a freaking zombie. And that's some of the hardest parts about it too, is that you carve out the limited time that you have, but the before prep and the aftermath is so time consuming as well that you're trying to do that while you're trying to watch your kids so your wife can go and live her life as well. And that's like some of the hardest moments, but I'm really proud that I've taken the time to do it. Like with the double Everest, dude, I had 1.5-year old twins and a 3-year-old. And thankfully we have family support and I have a flexible schedule, but dude, there's a lot of stuff I need to do. I can't just like go peace out and ride all day. I wouldn't have a business, I wouldn't be able to make and post content. Like, it's it's hard to put the reins in on yourself and be like, dude, like I want to do this thing, but here's the real reality of what it's going to take. And I think doing these things in the last few years has really given me a better grasp on it. Even with like developing an app and like all that business stuff, it's like when you get deep enough into something, you understand the reality. But the last thing I'll say to answer this question is like the whole racing side of it. I love riding all the bikes. And dude, honestly, I'm pretty good at most bikes like, in general. And like good enough to where again it's kind of distracting to where you can have enough success to where you're like, oh, maybe I should do a little bit more of this. And like all of a sudden you go down this rabbit hole of prioritizing something that's not as important as it should be compared to the other things in your life. So I've had to really ask myself, like, where is the value from me racing? And also I've had to put barriers on like what I do race. I can't go race XC and cyclocross and do a random enduro race, go do Downeyville and do all these gravel races and then go race crits and then go do this like stage race in Europe that looks really fun. Like I can't go do all this stuff, Not even a pro could do stuff like that. And I can't compare my racing schedule to a pro's racing schedule. So you have to start like reeling it in on, okay, what's the thing you really want to do? You can't do it all or you'll go crazy because I've tried. And so for this year, I was like, I'm only racing gravel. That's it. I'm only racing gravel. That's going to create some huge boundaries. That's my favorite type of racing right now. And it's also great for the community. And I also do well enough to add credibility and to get good content. So for me to go to a race, it's not about getting on the podium. It's about showing up, showing my preparation, being with the community at races and doing my best and then making sure I have content around that. And the combination of those things really supports my business. And dude, at the end of the day, I'm genuinely having so much fun gravel racing that's another part of it too. It's something I really do for fun. And there's times where the work side of it can overshadow just the pure fun. But even out there, sometimes when I'm riding, I've gotten better at being present during gravel races and looking around and just being like, dude, this is sick. Like the race I did with Jonathan Lee was in Carson City in Nevada, and you're looking at the backside of Lake Tahoe, some of the mountains. And I'm coming down this fire road. I'm doing like 35 miles an hour in the drops for a couple miles. And I'm just dead straight looking at this mountain range and it's got snow on it. And I'm literally thinking, I'm like, dude, this is pretty badass. Like I'm out here in the high desert, hauling ass on my bike, looking at this insane view. Like I'm proud of this moment, you know what I mean? And also like even out racing Unbound, I want my kids to be like, dude, my dad is doing a 200-mile race across Kansas on his bike. Like it's just cool, you know? At least it is to me. Maybe they think I'm an absolute idiot, or they will. Who knows? But I think those are all like the reasons that making the time for racing is worth it for me. But I've had to put a lot of boundaries around making it feel like it's the right thing to do, because it's just easy to get carried away with stuff.
So when you think about where you're taking your business model, your content, where you're headed as an athlete, who are other people doing similar things that you look at as a model, or do you have mentors that are doing something similar that kind of guide what you do? Or are you making it up as you go?
Well, a big mentor of mine has been Trainer Road. That's actually been a business, and I've had a great relationship from Jonathan Lee, or with Jonathan Lee, from admiring what they've done and built, and the platform and the product, the content around it. That has been a really big motivation for me. Probably the biggest one that I've looked to over and over again for direction. But with that said, it's changed a lot recently, and this is within the last, I'd say, 6 months to probably really the last 6 months. Because a year and a half ago, I launched my app, and I spent up to almost a year developing the app based off of my subscription on the website. And my goal has been to build the platform of Dialed Health. And actually, in the beginning, my intention was like a long-term plan to be able to remove myself from the platform, have other trainers inserted into it, and just manage it. And I mean, it sounds like a really good long-term plan. It kind of makes sense. I already had trainers I'm working with that were doing collaborative programs that live on the website. And so I was like, this could be a thing that could really work. And on a smaller scale, be something like a product like Trainer Road, but maybe even more like Peloton or something, where you have these coaches in the actual platform. And so in the year of development for the app, the launch of the app, and then another year of actually trying to fix everything that's wrong with it, I've realized that, and I know you know way more about this than I do, with everything you've done at Strava, but developing it, you become a tech company. Like having this app and this platform, that has to be your number one focus. And to have such a lean team and lean budget and to make this thing a reality, I'm like, it's not that I don't think I could do it if I wanted to do it, but I don't think that's what I want to do. You know, like I said earlier, I know my natural gift is in encouragement, and I have all these life skills I've built up through cycling that come through with Dialed, like me as a coach for Dialed Health. And I also have this very unique background of, 10 years of personal training experience and 10 years of professional race experience that have come together, that has given me a good grasp on what riders really need to do. And I'm also currently doing it. So I was like, it feels wrong for me to focus on building a platform and removing myself as the trainer, when I think the majority of my value comes from being the coach himself. And there's other ways I could scale the business that I've started to realize that, but I've really shifted what I think I should do going forward for the long term, and moving it away from building and developing a platform to making sure I'm 100% focused on the coaching, and also the community behind it as well. Because for a valuable brand, especially a subscription based service, having like the community aspect dialed is huge. And then when you're trying to integrate ways for a community to connect on your own app and platform, the cost and the actual ability to do it successfully is so difficult that I think leveraging other platforms is going to be the way to go. And it's, again, this is one of those decisions where I'm like, man, it's very hard to do because you don't want to feel like you're giving up, but it's like a true pivot. Like I've been in this long enough to understand what the reality is of developing this thing is. So I bring up all of that. I know you didn't ask for the behind the scenes business information, but those are things I'm dealing with now, where I'm like, okay, how do I improve the coaching aspect of it? How do I focus and make more time for it? Because there's just so much I don't do that I want to and that I could, because I'm trying to develop this app. And so what's the next step for me there? And thankfully, I can't talk about it yet, but I think I've gotten some really good clarity and a really good path going forward very recently. So I'm excited, man. It's like the coaching side of it is going to be huge, but it's definitely not going to be the Trainer Road model of focusing on the platform. It's going to be really focusing on myself as a coach and building the Dialed Health community.
Yeah, being an entrepreneur is just solving problems continually. That's really what the job is at the end of the day. So that's awesome. Like you're de-risking things, you're discovering what works, you're discovering what actually brings you happiness, which that's just such a critical part of business and life. And honestly, it's one that most people completely neglect. And it certainly
Mm.
is a privilege to be in a position where you can choose to do something with your time and the way you make money that brings you happiness. But I think that that's a very worthy aim, and maybe one of the highest order things we should all really shoot for in life, because we spend so much time working. Ideally, it should be something that brings other people happiness through the service or goods we provide, and brings us and the people around us happiness and joy. Because if it doesn't, over time, that's going to suck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
right.
I think it's interesting because on one hand, I can literally look back at the last like 7 years since really becoming an independent personal trainer and not working for another company, that I have absolutely done everything I can to make this a reality. And I've pivoted like through COVID. I took my business from in person to online. I lost 80% of my income. Like, dude, crazy stuff at the time of having twins, taking risks, taking loans out to open up a training studio, booking stuff, changing schedules, losing clientele, moving across town to, starting the app itself, which is an insane investment. And so, and then, well, I'm not even going to keep going down that path, but it's just, you have to pivot, and you have to, give yourself credit for being so intentional about that pursuit. But at the same time, I think if you aren't in a position to where you feel like you can quote unquote custom build your job, I think it's good to look at the value you are providing for the world. There are things that make people wildly happy that might seem like nothing to you. And there are these necessary things that, I don't know, like, I guess what I'm getting at is like finding purpose in your job, even if you feel stuck somewhere that you don't want to be in, is so important. And it's not that you need to give yourself credit for something that's not real, but I'll give you an example. Like if you're a barista at a coffee shop, going to a coffee shop and getting my coffee daily and doing some emails, that's one of my favorite parts of the day. Coffee's my favorite thing ever. And when I get a good coffee, it makes me genuinely so happy. That's huge value for my life. It's very positive. My garbage man that waves to me every morning, that always comes back when I forget to take my garbage truck or my garbage down, and he waves to my little kids. I freaking love that guy. Like, and also we have a lot of garbage. So, I have 3 babies. So there's things like that have a huge impact that you would think, oh my gosh, this is not like a cool job. This wasn't my dream. But to find the purpose in it now, if you need to bridge the gap and use that as fuel to get to somewhere you want to be, I think is super important to keep in mind.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. One of the favorite jobs that I've personally had is mowing lawns. Like I ran a lawn service in high school and college. I loved doing it. It brought people happiness and joy to see that, hey, like my lawn looks nice. And today I still love mowing my lawn. It's one of, it's one of
That's rad.
I know a lot of people who are like, whatever, that's not a good use of my time. For me, like it brings me joy to do it and to look out and like see my yard and think, I'm at a point in my life where I'm lucky enough to have a yard, right, in a place that I love, and it looks nice because I got to spend some time doing this. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's kind of dude, it's like the start moving forward mentality that I have. It's the motto of my business. Like for you to show up and do your best work, no matter where it is. I mean, you see these stories about like someone who started at McDonald's just working the cashier thing, but they do their job well. They show up on time and they are reliable and they're friendly and they go a little bit above and beyond and they get a promotion. And pretty soon they're running that McDonald's and then they buy their own franchise of a McDonald's or whatever it is. When you do a good job at whatever it is you do, I personally believe that that's such a rarity these days, especially, that you are going to stand out and you're going to get opportunities, especially when you're looking for them. And like that's with start moving forward. It's like, okay, I don't know what is in store for me 10 years down the road, or I have this huge lofty goal that feels so out of reach. I have no idea how to get there and bridge the gap. Instead of letting that defeat you and say, okay, I'm not going to do anything at all, I know for a fact in your head, there is something that you could do today. There's something you've been putting off. there is something that even if it feels unrelated, that you know you could execute it and get it done that day. And the thing that's so important about doing it is that you check it off your list and it opens up your brain to think about the next thing. Or you learn something through the process of getting that done that is an experience you didn't have before. And because of that, you're wiser and you can see things differently beyond that point. You could see opportunities that were there, but you just couldn't grasp it because you had this thing in front of you. So step by step, you have to start moving forward and make that decision every single day, even if you don't know how this thing is going to get you to the next point. Like I never knew I'd have this full circle job of dialed health and strength training for cyclists when I left to become a strength coach and quit downhill racing. I thought that was it. And again, who knows where I would be if I didn't let go of the enduro racing endeavor. And I just kept going because I was so close and I was so close. You know, I kept doing the next thing, even though I didn't know where I'd end up. And I'm really happy where that's now. And honestly, it gives me so much confidence as an entrepreneur going forward to be like, dude, I think I know kind of the direction I'm going, but if it doesn't work out that way, I'm sure it's because there's something better in store that I can't even envision right now because of my current experience and my current like wisdom level or something. So you got to start moving forward. Whatever that thing is on your mind right now, you got to just get it done so you can move forward. And the last thing I'll say on this is that this is like how you develop confidence as well. Do you listen to Ed Milet, motivational speaker?
I haven't.
He's one of my favorite dudes. He will get you fired up to just get stuff done. But he's also very introspective and, he'll talk about your feelings a little bit, but he also will say, hey, get your ass up and get some work done, which is, I think, the perfect balance. So he basically says the way to create confidence is to keep the promises that you make to yourself. So whether that's saying, I'm not going to have alcohol today, or I'm going to wake up and not hit my snooze button tomorrow, these little things are how you actually build up enough confidence to feel like you can go and do the big thing that you're maybe not trying to do. Like it gets you one step closer and it makes you believe yourself that you'll do something when you say you can do it. Because I know I've been in positions in my life where I want to do something, but I don't really think I'm going to do it because I never really do. I never really follow through. But if you're the type of person that says, I'm drawing a line in the sand, tomorrow I'm not going to have any alcohol. Tomorrow I'm going to track all of my food. Tomorrow I'm going to do the 2-hour ride that I have planned. And I'm going to wake up extra early to get it done. When you execute on those things, it may seem small, but then it makes you feel empowered to do the next thing. And that's what it's all about. This is start moving forward. It's do the next thing and build up that self-confidence by executing the small things well.
And Derek, that's how you're going to go ahead and beat Jonathan Lee at Unbound 2024. So you heard it here first. Derek is going to beat Jonathan Lee at Unbound 2024. And Derek, I'm really grateful to get to spend some time with you today and hear more about your journey. So thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor. You've had some incredible guests on, so I'm really stoked to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. You can find Derek on Instagram at Dialed Health and at dialedhealth.com. And be sure to check out his YouTube channel and his podcast. They're both excellent. I highly recommend them both. Those links, as always, are in the show notes. Please take a moment to rate this show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you've never done it before, you're in for the thrill of your life. Just go to the show page, scroll down, and hit 5 stars wherever you listen. It means a lot to me and to my guests, and it helps more people find these episodes. Please leave a positive review wherever you listen and share this episode with someone you care about. To be in touch, you can DM me at HardwayPod on social or send an email to choosethehardway@gmail.com. Choose the Hard Way is a Big Truck production. Anthony Palmer at Palm Tree Podco is the producer and editor, and Emily Miles is head of digital and marketing. Jeffrey Nebellini is the world-renowned designer behind our brand identity and the striking Choose the Hard Way logo. Thank you, Jeffrey. The content for this show is created by me, Andrew Vance.